Rosa Parks and the Bus to Freedom, Chapter 6. When Rosa first met Raymond Parks, she didn't like him much. He was too white, she said bluntly. Although she had loved her light-skinned grandfather, she found dark-skinned men more attractive. And Raymond Parks was very light. Except for his hair, he could have passed for white. When the two met, Rosa was 18 and Parks was 28. Everybody, including Rosa, called him by his last name. He was a barber in Montgomery. A mutual friend who knew Parks had recently broken up with his girlfriend introduced the two. At their first meeting, Rosa was polite, but she made it clear she wasn't interested in romance. Still, Parks didn't give up. He soon drove out to Pine Level to call on Rosa. Finding her wasn't easy. The family didn't have a telephone, and he didn't have her address. He stopped to ask an elderly black neighbor if she knew Rosa. The neighbor thought he was a white man, so she said no. Eventually, Parks found his way to Rosa's house. He visited with her and her mother. The next week, he came back. When she saw him coming, Rosa went to her room and pretended to be sleeping until he left. But finally, Parks convinced Rosa to come out with him. He had bait she couldn't resist, a jazzy little red sports car. It was something very special for a young black man to own his own car, particularly when he wasn't driving for any of the white folks, Rosa later said. Once Rosa gave Parks a chance, she discovered that he was a remarkable man. He didn't have any formal education. He had grown up in an area where there are no black schools, so his mother had taught him to read and write at home. Still, he had become an eager reader who had educated himself on many topics. Working as a barber had added to his knowledge and interest. In the segregated South, the black barber shop was an important community center. Along with the black church, it was one of the very few public places where groups of blacks could gather, talk, and exchange news without being overheard by whites. The thing that impressed Rosa most, though, was that Parks was an activist. He didn't just talk about the unfair ways that blacks were treated. He worked to change things. For many years, he had been a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. At the time that Parks and Rosa met, the NAACP was involved in an important case known as the Scottsboro Boys. The Scottsboro Boys were 9 young men, ages 12 to 18, who had been accused of raping 2 white women. The case against them was very weak. In fact, it was unlikely that anything at all had happened to the 2 women. But this was a time and place where a black man could be lynched for just looking at a white woman. After a hasty trial before an all-white jury, 8 of the 9 Scottsboro Boys were sentenced to die in the electric chair. Parks was a founding member of the National Committee to Defend the Scottsboro Boys. He and other activists spent many hours raising money for the young men's defense, hiring lawyers for them, and spreading the news about the way the men had been framed. Rosa deeply admired Parks for getting involved in the case. She wanted to attend meetings with him, but he said no. The work he was doing was very dangerous. The committee met in secret, knowing that the police were looking for excuses to raid them. Members were accused of being communist, traitors, and troublemakers. To protect her from knowing too much, Parks wouldn't even tell Rosa the names of the other men on the committee. He jokingly told her that they were all named Larry. In Parks, Rosa found someone who was as fiery and outspoken as her grandfather had been. She said, "He was the first man of our race, aside from my grandfather, with whom I actually discussed anything about the racial conditions." And he was the first, aside from my grandfather, who was never actually afraid of white people. So many African Americans felt that you just had to be under Mr. Charlie's heel. That's what we called the white man, Mr. Charlie, and couldn't do anything to cross him. In other words, Parks believed in being a man and expected to be treated as a man. Rosa's opinion of Parks had changed forever. In 1932, when Rosa was 20, they were married and moved into an apartment in Montgomery. In spite of the hard work by Parks and many others, the case of the Scottsboro Boys was not settled for a long time. In 1933, after one of the two women who had claimed to be raped admitted that she had lied, the men were given a new trial. Another all-white jury again condemned them to die. At that point, the Supreme Court got involved. They said the trial hadn't been fair because no blacks had been allowed on the jury. In 1937, the 4 youngest men were freed, but the last of the Scottsboro Boys wasn't released from prison until 1950. That was 19 years after the supposed crime had happened. The case of the Scottsboro Boys and Parks' example changed Rosa Parks' life. She had always known that the way black people were treated was wrong. Now she began to think about how to put her beliefs into action. Thank you.